In a world where love can quickly turn to obsession, a seemingly innocent reunion spiraled into a chilling tale of betrayal and horror. What happens when love becomes a weapon? When obsession blinds reason and compassion? As the truth unfolded, the world would bear witness to the dark side of romance, where a single encounter can lead to a chilling climax. This is a tale that explores the depths of human emotion, the fragility of trust, and the terrifying consequences that can arise when love goes wrong. The final act would leave everyone questioning, how well do we truly know those we love? Dear viewers, liking, commenting, and subscribing only takes a few seconds, but it means so much to us. Every click and comment fuels our passion. Thanks. On a mild early spring morning, on Sunday, April 29th, 2018, a serene fishing outing turned into a horrifying experience. A man was fishing along the Lane Cove River, a tranquil northern tributary of the Parramatta River in Sydney, Australia. With birds singing and the gentle sound of water against the riverbanks, nothing seemed amiss. Then, something unsettling appeared in the flow of the river. At first, the elderly fisherman squinted, doubting his vision as he noticed an object bobbing face down on the water's surface. The shape was chillingly familiar, something resembling a human body, yet his mind wrestled against the grim notion, hoping it was merely debris. But as the moments passed, his suspicions solidified. The figure was indeed a person. A young woman with long, dark hair that waved softly with the river's current. It was a sight no one could easily shake. Shocked, but composed, he hurriedly dialed the police to report his disturbing find. Within the hour, law enforcement arrived on the scene, navigating the river's edge to locate and retrieve the body. Just a few dozen feet downstream, they pulled the lifeless woman from the river's embrace. She was young, and at first glance, her injuries suggested a violent end. But the mystery deepened. There was nothing on her to reveal her identity. She carried no mobile phone, no wallet, no belongings of any kind that might help investigators solve this puzzle. As her body lay still by the riverside, a somber air fell over the scene, and the team quickly moved to piece together the scant clues before them. Who was she, and what cruel fate had led her here? Initial examinations of the remains swiftly dispelled the theory that her death was a tragic accident. The body, still relatively fresh, had been in the water for less than a day. It was evident she had fought vigorously to defend herself, as defensive wounds marred her hands. A dark, clear line around her neck spoke volumes. She had been strangled, and not with an object, but with bare hands. A highly personal, intimate, and brutal act of violence. Her clothes, a simple t-shirt and wide-legged pants, appeared ordinary at first, but on closer inspection, investigators found the large pockets were packed with stones. It was an unmistakable attempt by her assailant to weigh her down, hoping the stones would prevent the body from surfacing and perhaps buy them enough time to evade discovery. But in their haste, they had overlooked a crucial detail. The pockets had no zippers or buttons, allowing some stones to fall out, ultimately letting the body float downstream. The autopsy report, revealing no traces of alcohol, illegal drugs, or sedatives, dispelled any suspicion that she might have been incapacitated by chemical means before her death. There were also no signs of sexual assault. The cause of death was unequivocal: mechanical asphyxiation, caused by the relentless force of a person's hands around her throat. This woman, whose life had ended in a desperate struggle, appeared to be in her late 30s. Investigators, hoping for a breakthrough, scoured missing persons reports for women of that age group. By that afternoon, a name surfaced. A woman named Cecilia Haddad, 38 years old, had been reported missing by her family after she suddenly went silent on April 28th, failing to show up for a work meeting and becoming unreachable by phone. When police accessed her photos and compared them to the deceased, the resemblance was clear. Family members were called in to confirm what the investigators already feared. The body recovered from the Lane Cove River was indeed that of Cecilia Haddad. Cecilia's story added another layer to the tragedy. Originally from Brazil, she had built a successful life in Australia, both professionally and socially. A passionate entrepreneur, she was known for her active role in various charitable initiatives, with a warm demeanor that endeared her to friends and colleagues alike. But the sudden and brutal nature of her death sent ripples of shock through her community and back home to Brazil. Who could harbor such hatred or malice toward her? Cecilia Bruna Haddad was born in the fall of 1985 in the vibrant and densely populated city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Growing up amid the lively energy of this iconic Brazilian metropolis, Cecilia's family life was rooted in strong bonds, love, and a commitment to values. She was raised in a close-knit middle-class household where her parents worked hard to provide a nurturing environment and a quality education for their children. In a family with several siblings, Cecilia stood out for her dedication to academics and an intrinsic sense of responsibility. Her family, along with her teachers and friends, recognized her as remarkably intelligent, responsible, and focused from a young age. While she excelled academically, she also possessed a kind, empathetic nature. She was known for being compassionate and generous, willing to help anyone in need. This blend of ambition and a kind heart made her beloved by all who knew her. From her earliest school years, Cecilia's academic talents shone brightly, consistently placing her among the top students in her classes. She had her sights set on attending one of Brazil's most prestigious universities, and her dedication paid off. After completing her secondary education with honors, she enrolled at the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro, a prestigious institution with a reputation for academic rigor. Her time there was formative and demanding. She immersed herself in engineering studies, earning both her bachelor's and master's degrees in the field. For Cecilia, these years were marked by hard work, but her ambitions only grew stronger as she developed a keen interest in the mining sector, a crucial industry in Brazil's economy. Upon graduation, Cecilia's career trajectory took a swift upward turn. She was accepted almost immediately after an interview with one of Brazil's leading mining companies. Her sharp, analytical mind and methodical approach to problem-solving quickly made her a standout employee, and she rose to the role of leading specialist within just a year. By 2007, she was 26 years old and poised for a significant career change. She received an enticing job offer from a top mining corporation in Australia, a leap she knew would challenge her in ways she'd never faced before. Cecilia understood that moving halfway across the world meant leaving behind her family, friends, and her culture. But she embraced the opportunity with open arms. Landing in Australia, she faced the daunting task of adjusting to a foreign environment and language. Although fluent in her native Portuguese and proficient in Spanish, she had little command of English. Yet, with the same determination she had shown throughout her life, Cecilia learned English with remarkable speed, driven by her desire to thrive professionally and personally in this new land. She accepted a managerial role within her company and soon gained the respect of her Australian colleagues, who admired her work ethic and warm personality. Her friendly demeanor and genuine interest in others helped her form lasting friendships, and she became involved in charity work and volunteer activities, including initiatives for the homeless and animal welfare. She also embraced Australia's natural beauty, developing a passion for hiking and skiing. In 2016, Cecilia decided to take her career in a new direction by founding her own consulting company. Her firm focused on helping entrepreneurs, particularly immigrants, navigate the challenges of starting a business in Australia. She provided guidance, mentorship, and strategic advice, earning a solid reputation for her commitment to her clients' success. The endeavor was a reflection of her own journey as a determined immigrant, and many clients felt a deep connection to her story and experiences. She became a role model within the immigrant community, someone who had succeeded against the odds and was now extending a helping hand to others. Despite her professional achievements and the positive impact she had on her community, Cecilia's personal life was marked by difficulties and disappointments. During her university years in Rio de Janeiro, she began dating Mario Marcelo Santoro, a man several years older. Their relationship was an unusual pairing. While Cecilia was ambitious and driven, Mario was less motivated, showing little interest in advancing his career or setting future goals. Still, Cecilia remained dedicated to him, believing that she could inspire him to reach his potential. When she received the job offer in Australia, she hoped Mario would join her, but he was unwilling to face the challenges of moving to a new country. Ultimately, after numerous attempts to convince him, Cecilia made the painful decision to pursue her dreams alone. ending the relationship to embrace her future. In Sydney, Cecilia's romantic life continued to be complicated. While working in her new position, she developed a relationship with a colleague that blossomed into marriage. The union seemed promising initially, but over time, it became evident that they were on divergent paths. Though they parted ways amicably after less than 3 years, Cecilia had hoped this relationship might provide her with a lifelong companion. Despite the breakup, they maintained a friendship, their shared experiences in Australia allowing them to part without bitterness or resentment. As her life unfolded in Australia, Cecilia dedicated herself even more fervently to her work and to helping her family. She earned a second degree, expanding her skills and deepening her professional knowledge. She also managed to bring her younger brother and sister to Australia, providing them with financial support and helping them find jobs, further demonstrating her commitment to family. Her life seemed a model of success and fulfillment, marked by a relentless drive to better herself and a generosity that touched everyone around her. Yet beneath this picture of achievement, Cecilia continued to grapple with the complex and often painful realities of love and companionship. While she was outwardly thriving, she still longed for stability and emotional support. Her relationship with Mario continued to shadow her thoughts. Though they had gone their separate ways, they remained loosely connected, exchanging occasional messages. Mario had made several attempts to re-enter her life, expressing a desire to reconnect. For Cecilia, who valued loyalty and family, these overtures stirred conflicted emotions. She felt torn between her sense of duty to someone she had once deeply cared for and the undeniable recognition that Mario's presence would likely disrupt her hard-won stability. Little did Cecilia know that these lingering connections from her past would soon take on a far darker significance. The same qualities that had made her a success, her empathy, loyalty, and readiness to help those she cared for, would place her in a position of vulnerability. In 2016, fresh from her divorce and eager to reconnect with her roots, Cecilia made plans to visit her family and friends in Rio de Janeiro. By this time, she was flourishing in her career. She had left her corporate job and was actively expanding her consulting business. Her venture was taking off successfully, and her enthusiasm for life was evident. She arrived in Brazil with radiant energy, sharing stories about her experiences in Australia and discussing her ambitious plans for the future. Her parents and friends were thrilled to see her thriving. Then, on the third day of her stay, Cecilia experienced an unexpected encounter that would prove pivotal. She ran into Mario, the boyfriend she hadn't seen in nearly a decade. The years had taken different tolls on them. While Cecilia exuded confidence and success, Mario appeared as though life had worn him down. He was visibly shocked by how far she had come, a stark contrast to his own struggles to make ends meet. This chance meeting stirred unresolved emotions in Cecilia, who realized she still had some affection for her old flame. Nostalgia took hold, and they began spending time together, revisiting places that held memories from their youth. Once back in Sydney, Cecilia and Mario remained in close contact, exchanging daily messages and calls. Her affection reignited, and within a month, she bought him a plane ticket to Australia, convinced he was the man with whom she could build a future. She welcomed him into her spacious apartment in a high-end Sydney complex, fully supporting him financially and emotionally, eager to share her success with him. She even went as far as to leverage her contacts to secure Mario a high-paying position, hoping this would inspire him to find purpose and stability. Yet, her rekindled love soon took a troubling turn. Living together under one roof, Cecilia began to notice unsettling changes in Mario's behavior. Despite her best efforts to uplift him, he grew increasingly controlling, resentful, and possessive. Mario's jealousy quickly escalated, evolving into an oppressive need to control her every move. Independent by nature, Cecilia resisted his attempts to dominate her, standing her ground whenever he tried to undermine her autonomy. Mario also began interfering with her business, demanding a share of her company's earnings and arguing that he shouldn't have to work for others. Their disagreements soon became routine, with Cecilia striving to keep the peace, offering compromises, and pouring her energy into preserving their relationship. But Mario's actions became more invasive and insidious. He frequently monitored her, taking her phone without permission, checking her messages, and snooping through her work laptop. He even sought to limit her interactions with friends and colleagues, going as far as discouraging her from seeing certain people. As much as she wanted to help him find stability and happiness, Cecilia couldn't deny that the relationship was becoming toxic. Despite enduring these controlling behaviors for nearly a year, she finally reached her breaking point. Summoning the courage to address their issues, Cecilia had an honest conversation with Mario, informing him that she wanted to end the relationship. Mario's reaction was explosive. Enraged by her decision, he lashed out verbally, shouting insults and belittling her efforts and accomplishments. When Cecilia attempted to calm him down, he lost control, striking her across the face. This was not the first time Mario had shown aggression. He had previously pushed her or grabbed her arms hard enough to leave bruises, but this was the first time he had struck her in such a brutal, deliberate way. The incident was a wake-up call for Cecilia. It solidified her resolve to end the relationship. Initially, Mario tried to win her back with apologies, sending her heartfelt messages, flowers, and gifts, hoping she would forgive him. But Cecilia remained resolute, unwilling to subject herself to his volatile behavior any longer. When his attempts at reconciliation failed, Mario's tactics turned darker. He began to harass her, calling her incessantly, sending unsettling messages, and even showing up at her workplace. His once heartfelt messages morphed into threats, creating an atmosphere of fear in Cecilia's life that left her constantly on edge. The man who once claimed to love her had now become a source of terror. Cecilia's friends and family urged her to seek help, recognizing the serious danger Mario posed. Yet despite their support, Cecilia felt trapped. She reported the harassment to local authorities, but the response was limited, as Mario's actions hadn't yet escalated to physical violence after their breakup. Left with few options, Cecilia took measures to protect herself, installing security systems and changing her daily routines. Still, Mario's presence was an oppressive force that she could not entirely escape. During this difficult period, Cecilia's focus on her work began to waver. The energy she once devoted to her business was increasingly drained by the stress of dealing with Mario's intimidation. Her friends noticed the change. She became quieter, more reserved, and less inclined to join social gatherings. The once vibrant woman who had inspired so many with her resilience was now living under a shadow, fearful of her ex-partner's next move. Her sense of safety, the feeling of freedom she had cultivated in Australia, felt like it was slipping away. After the turbulent breakup, Mario took up residence in an apartment just 10 minutes from Cecilia's home, positioning himself close enough to keep her within his reach. His obsession intensified as he called her daily, flooded her with messages, and even waited by her door, hoping to get a glimpse of her. Cecilia, despite recognizing the growing danger, initially tried to reason with him, clinging to the hope that Mario would eventually accept the breakup. But his behavior only worsened with time. On one particularly unsettling evening in January 2018, Mario showed up at Cecilia's apartment, demanding to be let in. She tried to refuse, but he forced his way inside. Once inside, he lunged at her, his aggression raw and terrifying. By some miracle, Cecilia managed to break free and retreat into a nearby room where she barricaded herself. As he pounded against the door, Cecilia pleaded for him to leave, to reconsider his actions, reminding him of their shared past. Only when she threatened to call the police did Mario stop and, after a long silence, finally leave. Despite the violent escalation, Cecilia chose not to report the incident. She feared for Mario's future more than her own safety. With his visa expired, any police report would mean immediate deportation back to Brazil. Although she had cut romantic ties with him, she couldn't fully shake the compassion she felt for him, the remnants of a love they had once shared. But this incident marked a turning point for Cecilia. No longer feeling safe in her own home, she temporarily moved in with her sister Carol and later stayed with a friend, Rita. Both women saw the danger Mario posed and urged Cecilia to go to the police. But Cecilia held back, unable to believe that he would cause her serious harm. Despite her friend's insistence, she convinced herself that he would soon come to his senses, that he would recognize the path of self-destruction he was on, and ultimately let her go in peace. In early April 2018, after weeks of living in borrowed spaces, Cecilia returned to her apartment. But she was greeted by a chilling realization. Mario had been in her home multiple times in her absence. At first, she noticed subtle signs, items out of place, doors she had closed left slightly ajar. Soon she confirmed the truth. He had a spare set of keys. Though he had returned them after the breakup, Mario had evidently reclaimed them during one of his forced entries. Conversations with neighbors deepened her alarm, as several reported seeing him loitering around the building and even entering her floor multiple times. They, too, suggested she contact the police. But once more, Cecilia brushed off the idea, reassuring them, and perhaps herself, that she could handle the situation. Determined to outlast his obsession, Cecilia devised a plan to live as discreetly as possible. She avoided turning on lights and refrained from making any noise inside her apartment. She went as far as to only leave or enter her building when she was certain Mario wasn't around. If she had the slightest suspicion that he might be lurking, she'd retreat to her sister's or a friend's home for the night. The stress of living in constant fear gnawed at her. She was always on high alert, her nerves stretched to their limits. But then, without warning, something changed. On April 25, 2018, Mario called. To Cecilia's surprise, his tone was calm, almost eerily so. He explained that he had come to terms with everything and would no longer be disturbing her. He apologized for his behavior and revealed that he had booked a flight back to Rio de Janeiro, set to leave early on April 28th. Mario then made a final request. Could they meet for a last goodbye? Relieved by the news, Cecilia cautiously agreed but insisted on meeting him at the airport, a public and presumably safe space. After the call, she felt an overwhelming sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Her stalker and tormentor was finally leaving, and she would soon be able to reclaim her life. Excitedly, Cecilia called her sister Carol to share the news, envisioning the fresh start that lay ahead. But Carol's reaction was far from celebratory. She voiced her concern, convinced that something felt wrong. She urged Cecilia to reconsider meeting Mario, warning her that his sudden change of heart could be a ploy. But Cecilia brushed off Carol's worries, reasoning that a meeting at the airport, surrounded by security and crowds, was safe enough. Her mind was filled with thoughts of freedom, of a future untainted by fear. The events leading up to Mario's promised departure gave Cecilia the chance to rediscover herself. She spent those final days embracing the life she had nearly forgotten, indulging in moments of spontaneity and reconnecting with friends. She began envisioning her next steps in her career and planned a small celebration with her sister for when Mario would finally be gone. The prospect of living without fear rekindled her ambitions, and she even began considering new projects for her business. On Saturday, April 28th, Cecilia was meant to meet her ex-boyfriend, Mario, one last time at Sydney International Airport at 7 a.m. She wanted closure and was determined to confirm with her own eyes that he would leave her life forever. Carol, her sister, had repeatedly urged Cecilia not to go, sensing something was amiss with Mario's sudden decision to leave. But Cecilia insisted, telling Carol that this goodbye would mark the end of her ordeal. She even planned to call Carol as soon as Mario's plane took off to assure her that it was finally over. They spent nearly an hour on the phone the night before, sharing stories and jokes, and Cecilia seemed genuinely hopeful for the future, looking forward to a fresh start. But the next morning, things took a disturbing turn. Instead of the promised phone call, Carol received an odd text from her sister, claiming she'd decided to take a few days in the mountains to reflect and clear her mind. The message was unsettling. It didn't sound like Cecilia at all. Worried, Carol tried calling her back, but the phone was off. Messages from Cecilia soon began circulating to her friends and work colleagues as well. With a sense of dread settling over her, Carol reported Cecilia missing to the police that evening, providing all known details about Mario, her last known destination, and her concerns. By the next day, the worst fears of her family and friends were confirmed. On April 29, police had found a woman's body matching Cecilia's description near a remote stretch of riverbank. Carol was brought in to make the heartbreaking identification, realizing her sister's life had been tragically taken from her just as she was on the cusp of newfound freedom. The police quickly launched a rigorous investigation, retracing Mario's movements around Sydney in the days and hours leading up to Cecilia's disappearance. Along the riverbank upstream from where Cecilia's body had been discovered, officers stumbled upon a pair of men's shoes discarded in a patch of tall grass. The shoes were soaked through and bore signs of recent wear, likely abandoned to avoid leaving behind a clear trail. The clues only grew more chilling once investigators entered Cecilia's apartment, where they discovered dried footprints left by someone wearing wet socks. It became clear that Mario had returned to the apartment after the crime, but for what reason? It soon came to light that Mario, who didn't own a vehicle, had borrowed Cecilia's car after the incident to transport her body. The car bore traces of sand, fragments of riverside plants, and small puddles of river water, indicating it had been near the scene of the crime. The suspect's fingerprints were found throughout the vehicle, and his phone records helped detectives track his movements. Surveillance footage from multiple cameras further corroborated his path through the city, each piece of evidence painting a clearer picture of his actions that fateful day. One of the most crucial witnesses proved to be the taxi driver who took Mario to the airport. According to the driver, Mario had requested an unusual detour, insisting they cross a small bridge over a secluded river rather than take the usual route. Midway across, Mario had asked the driver to stop. The driver recalled Mario stepping out, casually tossing a bag and something shiny, likely a set of keys, into the water below before calmly resuming the journey. Following this lead, police took the driver back to the bridge, where divers were deployed to comb the riverbed for any signs of discarded evidence. Within hours, the divers recovered the submerged bag containing Cecilia's belongings, her cell phone, work laptop, documents, wallet, and various personal items. The intention was clear. Mario had staged the scene to suggest that Cecilia had left town of her own accord, retreating to the mountains to escape the pressures of city life. By disposing of the keys along with her belongings, he hoped to delay any discovery of her absence by making it difficult for anyone to enter her apartment. With Cecilia's body identified and the physical evidence mounting, detectives pieced together the suspect's final steps before leaving Sydney. Mario had taken Cecilia's life, dumped her possessions in an attempt to deceive her family and friends, and then casually flown out of Australia, certain he had covered his tracks. But his confidence was misplaced. Though he had already landed in Rio de Janeiro by the time the investigation pointed decisively to him, the police wasted no time in escalating the case to an international level. With concrete evidence implicating him in the crime, Australian authorities contacted Interpol, enlisting their assistance in pursuing the suspect across continents. Media coverage exploded as news of the manhunt spread, and the story of Cecilia Haddad's tragic fate captivated international attention. Interpol issued a red notice, effectively placing Mario on a list of high-priority fugitives. Brazilian and Australian officials collaborated closely, aware that this would be a high-profile and politically charged case. As the investigation unfolded, more damning evidence surfaced, including witness testimonies and digital records that captured Mario's growing obsession in the weeks leading up to the crime. Messages sent from his phone to Cecilia's indicated a disturbing blend of emotional manipulation and threats, confirming the toxic control he had tried to exert over her life. By early May, detectives had successfully traced Mario's path in Rio de Janeiro, monitoring his movements with the assistance of local authorities. Media outlets ran detailed reports on his history with Cecilia, his manipulation, and his final sinister actions. In a harrowing twist, details emerged about Mario's fixation on Cecilia's newfound independence and success, as well as his resentment that she had succeeded where he had failed. His obsession with controlling her even after their relationship had ended painted a chilling portrait of a man unwilling to accept his own failings. Only after the Australian police had meticulously gathered and presented an array of irrefutable evidence was Mario finally declared wanted for Cecilia's murder in his native Brazil. Nearly 2 months had passed since that fateful April day, and on July 7, 2018, Mario was finally apprehended by local authorities at a friend's apartment in Rio de Janeiro, where he had been staying in secret. Despite the high-stakes nature of the arrest, Mario showed little resistance, requesting a lawyer almost immediately. During the initial rounds of interrogation, he stubbornly denied any guilt, weaving a web of falsehoods that soon unraveled under the weight of hard evidence. As the evidence continued to mount, Mario's composure cracked, and he ultimately admitted to taking Cecilia's life. Yet in his confession, he twisted the narrative, desperately trying to redirect blame onto her. In his version, it was Cecilia who had been unable to let go of him, supposedly stalking him after their breakup and refusing to allow him peace. Mario even went so far as to claim that he'd tried to leave Sydney to escape her, alleging that she had stolen his passport to prevent him from leaving. According to his story, he had gone to her apartment early that morning only to retrieve his passport. When Cecilia supposedly refused to return it, a struggle allegedly broke out, leading to an accidental death. Mario claimed that in his shock, he attempted to revive her, performing CPR and chest compressions, but upon realizing she was gone, he panicked. He rationalized his later actions, the disposal of her body and attempts to cover up the evidence, as impulsive decisions made in a haze of fear. The police found Mario's story implausible, and even as he tried to manipulate the narrative, the timeline of his actions on that tragic day became clearer. With every interrogation, Mario's details shifted as he tried to confuse investigators in an attempt to dilute his accountability. He even feigned remorse, attempting to evoke pity by shedding tears, but his attempt was undermined by the testimonies of Cecilia's family, friends, and colleagues. Each person's account shed light on the persistent harassment and control Mario had exerted over her life. Investigators determined that Mario's decision to buy his plane ticket was not made out of fear of Cecilia, but instead as part of a calculated plan to escape punishment after committing the crime. Early on April 28th, around 5:30 a.m., Mario arrived at Cecilia's building and called her on the intercom, claiming he needed to retrieve his passport before his flight. Surprised by his unexpected appearance, Cecilia was hesitant to let him in. However, just moments later, Mario unlocked the building door using a spare key, one he'd taken without her knowledge during one of his prior visits, and made his way up to her apartment. The investigation suggested that, perhaps out of a misplaced sense of peacekeeping, she allowed him to enter without causing a scene. Almost immediately upon entering her apartment, Mario attacked Cecilia, strangling her before she could call out for help. Evidence revealed that she fought back, sustaining bruises and defensive wounds in her final moments, but she was overpowered by his strength. After ending her life, he carefully wrapped her body in a blanket, took the keys to her car, and under cover of dawn, drove to a remote riverbank. There, he weighed down her clothing with rocks before immersing her in the river, believing the weight would keep her submerged long enough to avoid discovery. Returning to her building just after 7 a.m., Mario used her keys to re-enter her apartment. Quickly gathering her laptop, phone, and some personal items, he set about staging her departure by texting friends and family with fabricated messages, creating a false trail to buy himself time. He then placed her phone and belongings in a bag and discarded them from a bridge into the river, furthering his illusion that she had chosen to retreat to the mountains for solitude. Mario's final hours in Sydney were calculated. He changed into fresh clothes and meticulously soaked his blood-stained garments in bleach to destroy any trace evidence. By mid-morning, he had called a taxi to take him to the airport, requesting a detour to dispose of additional evidence. An hour later, Mario boarded his flight, confident that his plans had gone undetected and that he was free from retribution. As Mario was a Brazilian national, Brazilian authorities refused extradition to Australia, requiring the trial to take place in his home country. After months of international coordination, a trial date was finally set in Rio de Janeiro for June 2023, where Australian law enforcement representatives, integral to the original investigation, were invited to present the evidence. The trial became a significant international event, drawing the attention of the media in both countries. During proceedings, Mario's defense team presented an alternative version of events, but the testimony of multiple witnesses and the weight of forensic evidence left little room for doubt. Throughout the trial, Mario continued his attempts to manipulate public opinion, often appearing visibly distressed and shedding tears. He insisted that the situation had spiraled out of control, claiming he had always loved Cecilia and was deeply remorseful. He described a tragic misunderstanding, blaming his actions on the chaotic end to their relationship. However, the judge and jury were unmoved by his theatrics, and the harrowing accounts shared by Cecilia's loved ones served as a stark contrast to his calculated statements. On July 1, 2023, after weeks of testimony and deliberation, Mario Santoro was found guilty of premeditated murder, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. The sentence was handed down: 27 years in prison without the possibility of parole, a significant sentence under Brazilian law. Both Mario and his lawyers quickly filed appeals, but the ruling remained steadfast.